Megan Lane, Director of Development, is originally from Maryland and graduated cum laude from New York University, where she studied anthropology with a minor in linguistics. Remaining in New York after college, she went on to produce charity galas for organizations like the Elton John AIDS Foundation, AMFR, Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, UNICEF Italia, where she specialized in auctions.
With art, you can kind of sneak things in, and that's what I love about it. Fundraising is all about creating touch points to be able to cultivate a relationship.
Kids actually were able to speak more and articulate what they feel because of art. The things that we don't notice are actually the most valuable things, and for donors they're so interesting.
And I feel like that's where I found my voice in a way.
Artful Impact.
Welcome, Megan, to Artful
you.
Impact.
Thank you so much.
So happy to have you here.
Yeah.
You're also my dear friend who I love so dearly.
I feel the same way.
Oh, and I feel like there's so much value in your mind and your way of being and the way seeing the world. So, Megan,
Yes.
your fundraising journey. What led you to pursue a career in fundraising for the arts, and what personal experiences shaped your passion for this work?
Well, I always loved art. You know, as a kid, I always got oil pastels for Christmas and would make little drawings and things like that.
And then sell it for big money.
But to be honest, I never really felt connected to that, to the art making. I feel like once I started talking about art and analyzing art, that's where I really found my passion. And I feel like that's where I found my voice in a way. And to be honest, I never thought of fundraising as a job. I worked in galleries after graduating college because I thought, I want to work in the arts. I know that. I eventually want to work at a museum, so let me try this. I was kind of turned off by this commodification of art just for profit to make the rich richer. And so I left, and I randomly got a job at this event production company. I did not even know that that was an option available, but this company dealt with organizations like you mentioned, and really my focus was using art in these auctions to fundraise for AIDS research, for environmental causes, for children, for abused women. And that I really felt passionate about. But again, it was still commodifying art, but for a good purpose. But I realized then I really enjoyed fundraising. I enjoyed connecting with people and allowing them to have a positive impact on the world. People who have enormous amounts of money and directing it towards good. But what I really wanted to do was support the arts themselves. And so I left that job doing event production. I had learned so much about fundraising. And then I went to this Institute for Classical Architecture and Art and doing their public programs. And I was really able to see firsthand, like, expanding access to art. And even architecture is an art form in and of itself, expanding access to that through lectures and really seeing, like you had mentioned before, seeing people light up and seeing that passion get ignited. And I think art has a unique ability to connect people and to show people the kind of common humanity within us all in a way that a lot of other disciplines can't, because people have barriers, they have resistances, but with art you can kind of sneak things in. And that's what I love about it.
So when you were working with donors, for example, can you share a particularly moving moment when you witnessed the impact of donors' contribution and how it reinforced your mission?
Yes. I feel like the most impactful moments for me personally are with kids. which is interesting because I don't really like spending time with kids, but I love seeing that kind of next generation get inspired. So at MoCA, they had this program called Contemporary Art Start, which is where they bring in students from schools that don't have arts funding, where it's been cut, or things like that.
How old are the kids?
They're elementary school, mostly. And so they bring them into the museum and they walk them around and show them different pieces and teach them how to talk about art and how to express their opinions about art, how to listen to other people's opinions and not get combative, to listen with compassion and really feel that confidence. And so there was this group at MoCA called the Projects Council, which was kind of like the older ladies group, you know, ladies who lunch, Beverly Hills ladies, but they're really passionate about this cause. And so I produced this event this past January that was kind of celebrating the Projects Council and all that they do. So I had to make this video about Contemporary Art Start. So I was really able to see the impact firsthand and to talk to these teachers and learn about how it goes beyond just art, the impact. They were saying that in science classroom, these children who have been part of this program are much more engaged. They're raising their hands when they were never before because they now feel comfortable expressing themselves.
Wow, goosebumps.
Yeah, so it's
beautiful.
The power of art to really, you know, impact people in ways that they don't even realize.
How do you align donors' interests with the needs of the organization you support to create meaningful and lasting partnerships?
I think something that's really important is, and it seems simple, but it's not, is really understanding what the organization is trying to do. What is the mission? So I'm working for this contemporary dance company. You know, they do performances, they do education programs for aspiring dancer, they do outreach programs for kind of underserved children, and it's thinking about all of those different aspects and what is the impact that we really want to have, and what are the different kind of avenues that people can support. So really kind of looking at the organization holistically and kind of dissecting it into digestible things. Say, like, as you dissect it, thinking about campaigns, different ways to engage donors. For example, we have these education programs. I've really been trying to push for this scholarship fund, and it allows the donors to, you know, see the mission of the organization, find a tangible way that they can help that's reinforcing the mission, and it's also enabling them to see a direct impact. And I think that transparency is really key. It's not just, hey, support this because art is important. It's, hey, support this aspect because we want to, you know, invite students who don't have the funds to take this program.
What is the most creative or unconventional approach you've used in fundraising campaign, and what was the outcome?
I think I have two answers, two very different answers.
We are here for it.
One is not that creative, but it was very effective, and I think as artists, I think it would be really helpful. So this was at MoCA. There was, you know, a real push to get people to fund exhibitions in general, not just specific ones, but to fund for exhibitions. And so I had come up with this idea to have this event where we invite prospective donors into a trustee's home, and the curators present on the exhibitions that they're planning for the year ahead. And this is one of the perks of working at MoCA, is that that's part of the job. You have these meetings where you get to hear from these curators and you hear their inspirations and what artists they want to work with and why they think this exhibition is important. And that's what I loved. And I felt like, why do we just get to hear this? This is a great moment to bring people in and make them feel part of this community.
Wow.
And so, and the curators just speak so wonderfully about these exhibitions, and creating this intimate setting where you can clearly demonstrate like the impact that you want to have through this art.
That is so cool. And a part of me, I'm like, ooh, like thinking about musicians, for example, like inviting donors to the like recording studio, like going for a walk where like the song was inspired or etc. And like
exactly. I had a meeting actually today. So in December, the Body Traffic's performing at the Wallace in Beverly Hills, and they were talking about inviting their donors, the Wallace's donors, to a dress rehearsal. And the guy said, you know, as long as there's dancing happening and there's notes being given, the donors are going to be happy.
What are the most common obstacles in fundraising? How do you overcome them to maintain donor enthusiasm?
I think, first of all, is building a relationship with someone new. Because you can't just right out of the gate ask them for money. Getting them to see, we did this program with Boys and Girls Club just last week. Getting them to see the reactions of these kids and just how enthusiastic they were about contemporary dance. These kids who before, the people at Boys and Girls Club told us that, especially the boys, they were like, oh, I don't care about contemporary dance, like whatever. They weren't excited. But then you see their faces and they're dancing in their seats. They're screaming as the dancers are doing these crazy drums. Right. And some of them were crying because it affected them so much. But inviting donors in to see that reaction, to not only see what you're doing, but to see directly the impact that you're having.
Of course. Wow. That's powerful. And honestly, like even for me, like watching these dancers, I'm like the ability to move their bodies in the way that they do just made me want to dance in my seat and come back home and be here, you know, like in front of the mirror. So yeah.
I have another struggle that I feel like I see across all nonprofits is this trying to get out of survival mode and think long term. Because I feel like, and especially I'm sure as an artist, you're trying to survive, you're trying to pay your bills, you're trying to make rent, you're trying to do all of this, and it's easy to get pulled by that. But to carve out time, and this is something that even I struggle to do at my current job that I'm really trying to push for, is think about that strategic plan, set your goals about where you want to be in a couple of years. How can you know if you've gotten there?
Talking about authenticity, how do you bring creativity and authenticity to fundraising events to maximize impact and inspire generosity?
So I think when it comes to events, people want to be surprised. At least in the world that I was in doing these charity galas, people come to these things all the time. They want something new. They want something different. So I think don't be afraid of doing something weird or something that scares you because people want to see that. They want to go to something that they had to be there to see it, that they want to tell their friends about. And I think, and this is something that at my company we think about when it comes to performances, is what do you want the audience to think about when they're leaving? What do you want them to feel after they see this, after they come to this event? And then dissect the event about, you know, how do they move through the space? What do they hear? What music? What do they taste? What do they see?
And so in your experience, what builds lasting trust between organizations and donors, and how can emerging fundraisers strengthen their bonds? So basically, how do you build those strong relationships?
So I think transparency is really key. And I think it's also about, you know, I had mentioned the importance of goal setting, and it seems simple, but it's so key. And also thinking about metrics that you can communicate to donors that showcase how you're reaching your mission, and those can change. So for example, when I was working at that Institute for Classical Architecture, this was coming out of the pandemic. I was doing public programs, so lectures and things like that. The audience numbers were huge for a couple of years during the pandemic when everything was virtual. So for donors, that's how I was communicating about impact. Like hundreds of people are attending these lectures, but then as we went into the live events, those numbers went down. So I had to think about another way to communicate about the importance of those lectures. And so I focused more on the stories that we were telling, highlighting diverse voices, especially in a medium like classical architecture, which is very, you know, kind of stuffy, very European centric, but highlighting, you know, Black architects and other voices, women architects. And I was, you know, I wanted to see how that landed because, you know, the numbers are easy to highlight because it's like, oh, we're reaching so many people. But then when you talk about these more qualitative metrics, this was like a test for me, and it really resonated. So you can always change what you emphasize and what you talk about if you know what your goals are.
Thank you. And advice for new fundraisers. What would you say to someone starting out in development who wants to fundraise with authenticity and impact?
I think looking at other people or organizations that are doing something similar to what you are and really thinking about how what you're doing is different. Because then that can show you why it's necessary. It allows you to communicate to people about, you know, maybe, well, it allows you to communicate that this thing is special.
Right.
Not necessarily like don't support that other dance company, but look at what we're doing.
Where you're authentic and where you're different from others.
Exactly.
Right.
And really thinking about what your needs are, because like I said, especially when you're just starting out, it's really easy to get distracted by the money and follow it. And then you end up miles
you sell your
away.
soul, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm living a completely different life than planned.
Exactly.
Right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Megan, so much. And
of course.
How can we support you, or what would you put out into the universe for it to bless you with?
I guess I'll plug my company, Follow Body Traffic. Come see us at the Wallace. There's performances in March. This season is all about nostalgia and memory. And with everything that the company is trying to do, it's really focused on this idea of resurrection. You know, a lot of us kind of are walking around with not feeling tapped into our emotions. Maybe there's something a little dead inside. And art can bring that to life. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Artful